Wouldn't it be great if you could tell what someone was thinking just by looking at them? Well, you can come close if you know how to recognize the silent signals people send. This radio beacon sends a signal that does nothing but identify itself. It broadcasts that same old identifying signal 24 hours a day. It would never rate a button on your car radio. But to an airplane, this beacon is a critical navigational aid. Like beacons, each of us broadcasts a unique set of nonverbal signals that does nothing but identify us to the world.
We learn these signals as we grow up by imitating those around us. That's why the body language of a farmer in India differs from a rancher in Nebraska or a teen in Australia. We imitate what appears most like us. That's also one reason guys and gals act differently. Guys grow up imitating guys, and gals imitate gals. Your postures, gestures, eye movements, and voice are all part of your personal broadcast, as are your use of time and the space around you.
People judge us by our signals. These include facial expressions, gestures, posture, and eye behavior. The study of these is called kinesics. The most obvious signals we send are emblems, gestures with agreed-upon meanings. A wave goodbye, thumbs up, okay, can I hitch a ride, applause, halt, and hundreds more. Move to another culture, and some of the emblems change meaning. Thumbs down works in most countries as a way to signal disapproval. It has a violent history dating back to the Roman Empire and gladiator combat. The thumbs down mimicked a plunging sword. Most people around the world know what it means. But the Romans did not use the thumbs up, and today that emblem has different meanings around the world. You might recognize it as meaning okay or all right. In Japan, it is often recognized as meaning the number 5. But in Australia, it is sometimes a crude gesture. People in the Hawaiian Islands recognize this emblem as a friendly gesture, but in the rest of the world, it will produce only puzzled looks. Perhaps this gesture by a person in authority is close to universal. Almost anyone would recognize it as meaning halt, except in Greece, where it could be a personal insult.
An illustrator is a second type of nonverbal message. Illustrators are small movements and postures used to emphasize ideas. They illustrate verbal messages. For example, we say something like, "Boy, was I stupid," and illustrate that with a gesture like this, a sort of mock hitting yourself in the head. Saying, "Let's go," is often illustrated by pointing forward. Or we clearly illustrate conflicting feelings or uncertainty. We don't plan these illustrators. We're seldom aware we use them.
A third type of clue we send is an affect display. Affect means emotion. So affect displays are facial expressions communicating feelings. Often the facial expressions are supported by body postures as well. When surprised, you widen your eyes and lift your eyebrows. The wider the eyes and the higher the eyebrows, the more your degree of surprise. When disgusted, you raise your upper lip, wrinkle your nose, push the lower eyelids up, and lower your eyebrow. Of course, you never think about how to move these muscles.
Reading facial expressions is not as easy as most of us believe. This actress will demonstrate 4 different emotions using only facial expressions. See if you can identify each of the 4 emotions. Here are the correct answers. 1 was fear. 2 was happiness. 3 was sadness. And 4 was surprise. In experiments using demonstrations of 10 emotions, audiences typically identify only about half. Affect displays are difficult to read out of context without surrounding real-life situations.
Actors in silent movies used exaggerated gestures and affect displays. Directors always provided enough of a setting, enough context, so audiences never doubted the character's feelings. How many emotions can you show on your face? At least one group of researchers concludes that there are 8: happiness, surprise, fear, anger, sadness, disgust, contempt, and interest. Others add bewilderment and determination.
Some research suggests that showing facial expressions increases the intensity of the feeling. In other words, assuming a sad expression on your face will actually make you feel sadder. Other studies suggest that body posture also influences feeling. Clenching your fists might make you more angry. Assuming a depressed, slumped posture will increase feelings of depression.
A common belief is that feelings don't lie. We tend to believe people who show strong emotion. But we do use affect displays to manipulate. The child is seeking attention more than expressing hurt. The emotional display causes adults to act. Manipulation accomplished. Adults use the same trick, only they make it less obvious. An affect display is not in itself more honest or natural than any other form of communication.
Another type of nonverbal display is the regulator. Regulators are subconscious behaviors including eye movements, head nods, and postures that regulate conversations. To show agreement, we nod, smile, or make sounds. A common use of regulators is to show we are listening. We use other regulators to show disagreement as well. Regulators include the voice inflections and gestures we use to signal whose turn it is to talk during a conversation.
Watch these scenes and identify the messages sent by these regulators. You get it. These regulators show boredom, lack of interest. If you see someone seated doing this, you suspect they are impatient. They want to get moving. Rarely will you see people thoroughly involved, say watching a movie, tap their feet or swing their legs.
We use our eyes to communicate. You can give someone a dirty look or an icy stare. You can have shifty eyes, use a sideways glance, or use a stare that goes right through. Standard American eye behavior is to notice strangers in public, but not to stare at them. We view staring as an invasion of privacy. This woman is using gaze to communicate. Do you see her message? Neither she nor her intended target have ever taken a course in school in how to flirt, but she knows how, and her target probably gets the message.
In normal two-person conversations, people look at each other from 10 to 80% of the time. Using film clips, researchers discovered those who used the least eye contact were judged as defensive, cold, and immature. But those who used the most eye contact were judged as friendly, mature, sincere, and self-confident. In normal conversations, women spend an average 15% more time gazing at their partners than do men. These studies suggest that in situations such as a job interview, eye contact is important. People will judge your sincerity partly by eye contact.
Eye behavior also influences how an audience reacts to a speech. The best public speakers sweep the audience with their eyes. They watch for faces that give feedback and make eye contact with the audience. Speakers uncomfortable with the group stare at their notes, glancing up rarely, and then to stare at a wall. They report feeling the audience as threatening. One study found that speakers who looked at the audience over 60% of the time were judged basically sincere, while those who looked at the audience only 20% of the time were rated as insincere.
The pupils of our eyes actually enlarge or dilate to show interest. This interest does not necessarily mean approval. It can be either positive or negative. Highly skilled card players watch the eyes of their opponents, seeking signs of a special hand. Of course, only beginners will give away a good hand with body language this easy to read. But experts look for more subtle clues, affect displays or regulators. They call these tells because they sometimes do tell what kind of hand a player holds. For example, beginners in poker often stare at a bad hand longer than a good one, and often won't look directly at other players when holding a very good hand. In a sense, this whole program is about tells, about ways you reveal your thoughts or feelings without your awareness. Your unique set of tells is your personal identifier.
Another part of the unique signal we broadcast to the world is paralanguage. Paralanguage concerns your voice minus the words themselves. That includes the tempo of your speech, which could range from rapid-fire auctioneer-like speed so fast that the words come tumbling almost too fast for most people to follow, to a slowness of speech that could just about drive someone crazy. You can feel how speed influences the message.
Even your volume is part of your unique signal. Some people are soft-spoken, while others are loudmouths. Pitch ranges from a deep voice to one that is high and squeaky. The extent of your words varies from clipped and abrupt to a long drawl. Pauses are part of paralanguage as well. Some of us speak without pausing, while others fill countless pauses and, with sounds that serve as kinds of fillers. Some people sound as if they're angry or upset. When others point this out to them, they deny it. I am not angry. Some people use inflections to turn most statements into questions. You know people who do this. It's a relatively recent trend. Many judge people who use this inflection as insecure or lacking authority. Many people who end sentences on an uptone don't know they do it. That's paralanguage.
Paralanguage can overrule the literal meaning of any string of words.
Nice shot, Ace.
We know here, nice shot means just the opposite. We often hear the paralanguage more clearly than the language. Culture makes a difference in the volume level of our speech. To Arabs, loudness shows warmth and sincerity. In Mediterranean countries, speech is often so loud as to seem aggressive to Western ears. Yet to many Asians, the normal American volume sounds uncomfortably loud.
For example, you probably have at least a vague mental picture of me. Well, here I am. Not what you expected? You can't tell much about appearance from a voice, but listeners are surprisingly accurate at judging education, age, and gender from vocal clues. Even in tests trying to mislead listeners about education, they were still correct over 60% of the time. Oh, by the way, this really isn't me.
Can paralanguage alone communicate emotion? In one experiment, listeners tried to identify emotions after hearing professional actors read the alphabet to convey a specific emotion.
P-Q-R-S.
Listeners correctly matched the emotion with the voicing only 20 to 50% of the time.
A Harvard University study examined the tone of voice of mothers talking to their infant children. The mothers were recorded, and their voices rated for anger, nervousness, warmth, and emotional involvement. Mothers with voices rated high in anxiety and anger had more irritable and insecure infants. This doesn't mean the tone of voice caused the insecurity. An anxious mother may constantly convey her anxiety and fearfulness to her children, who in turn become anxious and fearful.
The study of touching, of tactile communication, is called haptics. The first communication between mother and infant is touch. Infants deprived of human contact after birth do not thrive, but the need for human contact doesn't stop with infancy.
As children grow, they learn that don't touch applies to people even more than fragile objects. They learn a complex set of rules about who they can touch, when, and where. Studies show that even among peer groups, touch decreases considerably between ages 1 and 6. This continues into junior high, where children touch same-sex peers only half as much as they did in the primary grades. Between equals, touch shows solidarity. It reinforces friendship bonds. But if touch is a one-way option, only one person can touch the other, then it shows status and control.
A coach will put his arm around the player, but not the player around the coach. Every culture has touching rituals. Many concern greeting or leave-taking. Today's handshake goes back only about 150 years. Before that, people used bows, waves, and curtsies. Studies show that 60% of people who greet arriving or departing friends or relatives will touch in some way. Saying goodbye seems to involve longer contact than saying hello. Many hugs turn into imitations of burping a baby, complete with patting on the back. We comfort persons in sorrow or grief using touch.
Those who study adult touch report that most recipients interpret a pat as an expression of friendliness and playfulness, while strokes carry a sexual connotation. Some cultures touch a lot, others much less. American culture does not emphasize touch, but English, English-Canadian, German, and Japanese touch even less. Cultures that use touch more to communicate include the French, Italians, Southwest Asians, Russians, Spanish, and Latin Americans. When greeting, Frenchmen may kiss one another on the cheeks. In the Middle East, men often kiss in greeting.
In Spain and South America, female friends and relatives often walk down the street arm in arm. In the Middle East, two men can hold hands, and it is not a signal of being gay.
Anyone who has ever kept a pet cat or dog knows they are territorial. They have favorite places to eat, to sleep, to crawl into. Dogs are especially territorial, marking the space they claim and barking at others who seek to invade it. Many animals mark their territories by placing their scent on landmarks. We humans do something similar when we personalize space by graffiti, personal photographs on desks or notebooks, and even with vanity license plates.
People, too, are territorial. Our attitude toward our territory is part of our nonverbal signature. Certain spaces are your territory: your own room, your desk, your special chair, your house, your town. When these are invaded, you fight back. People victimized by robbery while they are not at home are often far more upset about the violation of their space than the money stolen. They often talk about feeling violated.
Proxemics is the study of how humans structure or claim space. Each of us carries an invisible bubble of personal space that extends a few feet all around us. We don't like people too close without our permission. It violates our personal territory. We are uncomfortable on the highway when tailgated. Our irritation on the highway is another illustration of that bubble of personal space. The car becomes an extension of our body and has its own stay-out bubble. Your territory is also a status signal. In general, the more territory you can claim as your own, the higher your status. That might explain people who insist on living on nothing less than a 5-acre lot, or a house with at least 5,000 square feet of living space.
A boss can walk into anyone's office in his company. He can invade lots of space. But employees have less territory they are free to invade.
How you see and use time is also part of your personal identifier. Cultures differ in how they treat time. Americans and Northern Europeans generally use monochromatic time. It emphasizes doing one thing at a time and sticking to schedules, appointments, and rewards promptness. These cultures believe time is money. The Middle East, much of Africa, and Latin America run on polychromatic time, in which several things go on at the same time. Several business negotiations can be going on at once, mixed with family matters and a social gathering.
A U.S. citizen living in South America would find their attitude toward time a constant frustration. A 9 o'clock meeting would never start at 9. In fact, nothing seems to start on schedule, and nobody complains. There are other ways we communicate nonverbally. Our choice of clothing is a form of communication. Body decorations, such as lipstick, mascara, paint, and jewelry, also send messages.
The presence or absence of head or facial hair is another message whose meaning changes with both time and culture. A beard can signal membership in a group, or a rejection of group values depending on the situation. These are only some of the nonverbal clues you can use to read people. Of course, that includes reading yourself. Keep your eyes open, do some intelligent people watching, and you'll see a whole world of communication you may never have noticed before.